Hey guys, how are you all doing? This is my recap for UFC 173, Barao versus Dillashaw. Overall, I thought there were some good performances throughout the card. The main card, pay-per-view portion, I thought was decent. Some kind of disappointing outcomes, some fights not as competitive as I wanted them to be, but just a fantastic main event, a really beautiful moment. Moments like that make the sport really great. But let's run through all the fights. I'll give you my thoughts on everything that occurred. Starting with the Fight Pass preliminary card, welterweight Li Jinglang decisioned David Machad. I thought this was a pretty boring fight. Two UFC newcomers, and they really showed it. Machad had a terrible game plan. He was trying to strike with Jinglang the whole time, but he proved to be the better grappler. Had a big slam at one point, and every time they got on the ground, Machad seemed to be better. He was able to take the back a few times, but really didn't pursue that takedown. And his corner was telling him he was the better wrestler. Jinglang had the better counter striking. Really busted up Machad a lot more than Machad was able to do to Jinglang. But this overall kind of a flat, underwhelming fight by both guys. Jinglang's really young, so maybe he has some potential. But Machad, on the other hand, I think he really showed he's not UFC caliber even at the lowest ranks. But I'm not looking forward to seeing either of these guys again. Next fight at featherweight, Sam Cecilia decisioned Aaron Phillips. I thought this fight was actually a lot closer than people are saying. Phillips in the first round. The first round I thought was pretty even. Phillips, he landed a few good body kicks and then dropped Cecilia with a knee to the body at one point. Cecilia spent most of the round, though, in top position. Second round, pretty fun grappling match. Both guys must have taken the back at least two times each, and they were reversing each other there several times on the ground. Kind of a back and forth grappling match. I thought that was pretty even. I did give the second round to Phillips, though. I thought on the ground he was a little better, and third round was definitely Cecilia's. Spent most of it again in top control. I was glad to see Cecilia use his wrestling more in this fight. I've been pretty critical of him and his skill set. And I think, it's clear he's really struggling to, even be successful among the really low ranks of the division. Aaron Phillips, I thought, showed some good Taekwondo style striking, especially with his kicks. He didn't seem to throw his hands, though, at all, but he seemed to have a pretty good guard. There might be some promise for him. He had a guillotine choke at one point. But Cecilia, when he's on the ground, when he's in top position, he just seems unable to kind of get free and work any real ground and pound. And on the feet, I think he's still pretty stiff. Really only throws those big haymakers and doesn't seem to be able to land many of them. But Cecilia gets the win, and I'm just still waiting for this guy to improve. I really don't think he's improved at all since his time on The Ultimate Fighter. But kind of looking forward to seeing Phillips again. I'll keep an eye on him, but Cecilia, I still really don't expect him to do much after this fight. Next up, a lightweight, last fight on the Fight Pass prelims. Vince from Hell Pichel decisioned Anthony the Assassin and Njokuani. And my God, I was completely wrong about this fight. I said it wasn't going to be competitive. I thought Njokuani was going to knock him out in the first round. And Petr just dominated him with the wrestling. He was able to close the distance, get in on Njokuani's legs, press him up against the fence, and had some great slams. Was just ragdolling Njokuani the whole fight. It was a little disappointing that Petr poked Njokuani in the eye and kicked him in the groin early on, but what a dominant performance. Njokuani, he's a good fighter. If he fights a stand-up fight, I think he's competitive with just about anyone, but it's very clear to me now that this guy cannot compete with any wrestlers. His 2 losses in the UFC, he lost the Barboza fight, but that was a super close fight that I actually thought he won. But his other losses were to Danny Castillo and Rafael dos Anjos, who took him down as well. But that Castillo fight, Njokuani kept that competitive with his striking, and his takedown defense seemed a lot better in that fight than it was here. But this was just a domination. Petr just ragdolled this guy, had slammed him about 3 or 4 times, and almost knocked him out with ground and pound at one point. Really kind of a real bad loss for Njokuani. He looked terrible here, and this is a big win for Petr. Njokuani's had some really good wins in the UFC, and Petr, a guy from the Ultimate Fighter, lost to Iaquinta in the house. Didn't get to the finals. I really didn't think he was gonna be anywhere near Njokuani's level, but put in a real dominant performance, and thought he looked a million times better here than he did in his last fight against Garrett Whiteley. He looked way more athletic here, and this is a guy to pay attention to, and I'd like to see him fight Danny Castillo. I'm sure Castillo feels he should be fighting a guy much higher up in the rankings, but both of these guys have wins over Njokuani, and Petr's win was far more dominant than Castillo's was, and they seem to be 2 really strong grapplers. But Petr, keep an eye on him, because really surprised me here. And Njokuani, I just don't think he's ever going to shore up that hole in his game with his takedown defense. He fought Castillo 2 years ago, and seems to have only gotten worse at takedown defense. But big win for Petr. Next up in the Fox Sports 1 prelim card, lightweight Mitch Clark choked Ala Iaquinta unconscious in the second round with a Darce choke. Again, another fight I was completely wrong about. Mitch Clark, I thought, had been just kind of a forgettable guy before this. Won his last fight against John McGuire, but had 2 losses to Anton Kavenin and got TKO'd by John Cholish, 2 guys who aren't even in the UFC anymore. Iaquinta has been on a roll, and he was on his way to dominating this fight. He knocked down Clark on the feet and was getting some good ground and pound in. And Joe Rogan called it on the broadcast. He said that Iaquinta should stand up. He should get out of Clark's guard and stand up, because Clark had a really sneaky ground game, and boy, was he right. Clark sunk in that Darce choke. Was very crafty. It looked like they were in north-south position. I think Iaquinta was trying to pass his guard, and Clark kind of used his feet to spin around off the cage, and somehow got his arms in the Darce position and locked that up, and Iaquinta went out quick. Great win for Clark, but I think we're kind of kidding ourselves if we think he looked good in that fight, or if we think that he's gonna have an easy time with anyone he faces. I think he's still pretty ineffective on the feet, and hasn't shown much of a wrestling game, but he definitely has heart. Definitely a dangerous guy on the ground. So I'm not gonna count him out anymore, but big win for him. Aikino was on a really good win streak, and he choked him unconscious. So great win for Clark. Interesting to see who he'll fight next. I still think he's gonna have a lot of trouble in the UFC, but really good win, and I'm a sucker for really sneaky chokes like that, and I love seeing that. And Iaquinta, really too bad for him. He was on a nice win streak, but in hindsight, the guys he beat were pretty low level. Ryan Couture, Piotr Hallman, and Kevin Lee. He did look good against those guys, but did not get a finish in any of those wins, and was also choked unconscious by Michael Chiesa. I think it's time to kind of reassess Iaquinta, his talent level and where he's at. Still a talented guy, but it's back to the drawing board for him. And Mitch Clark is obviously still a really low-ranked guy, and I think Iaquinta really has to change something up if he wants to be more than just the guy that made it to the tough finals and has had some good performances against lesser competition. He's talented, but something's got to change for him if he's ever gonna improve and really move up the ranks in the UFC. Next up at bantamweight, Chris hold it down Holdsworth, decision Chico, King, Camus. Nice performance from Holdsworth. This fight wasn't all that entertaining, although if you enjoy technical grappling, it was a really respectable performance by Holdsworth. On the feet, it's pretty even. Although I think it was the second or third round, Camus tagged Holdsworth a few times. He was able to get in on the inside, and tag Holdsworth. Holdsworth is really tall and lanky for a bantamweight. I think he's going to have some trouble with smaller guys who are able to get inside and box him up, guys with good power. I think that's definitely the area of his game that needs most work, but he was able to get Camus down, really out-grappled him, spent a lot of time in mount, went for a few arm triangle chokes throughout the fight. It's pretty close. Camus did well to defend, and Camus has really good defensive jiu-jitsu. He's really good at recovering guard. He did that for a while with Holdsworth, but once Holdsworth wasn't in mount, he was pretty dominant there. Holdsworth did work some ground and pound as well. Nothing too brutal, but a real technical dismantling of Camus here. Holdsworth was just way better on the ground. He really outclassed Camus, and I'm really high on Holdsworth. He comes from Alpha Male, and obviously, seeing how well Dillashaw did, and even before that, Alpha Male is, I think, one of the best camps, and I think he's got a real good submission game. He's very crafty there. I think his striking still needs to come along, but I'm excited for Holdsworth. And Camus, setback here. He's had some okay performances in the UFC, but I think we've kind of seen how far he can go. Losing to a tough winner, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I don't really see Camus, being a contender ever, and I think Holdsworth kind of, surpassed him, and Holdsworth is a guy we should pay attention to, but good one for Holdsworth. Interested to see who they'll give him next. Next up, lightweight, Tony El Kukui Ferguson TKO'd Katsunori Kakuno in the first round. For a minute there, it looked like Kakuno was going to knock out Ferguson. It seemed that his karate style was really working well. I think he tagged Ferguson with about 2 big strikes in the first round there, but then Ferguson just turned it around. He's got that really long, awkward boxing game. He tried to roll for a knee bar at one point. He had that Darce choke locked up. He did a really high-level pass to get to the armbar position. Didn't finish there, and before he transitioned to the Darce choke, then got back to their feet, and Ferguson was just all over him, chasing him down, hurt him badly, and I thought it was a really, really entertaining fight and a really strong performance by Ferguson. I want to see Ferguson fight someone higher up, though. I don't think he should be fighting guys like Kawano and Rio. He's shown that he's going to dominate that level of competition, and I'd like to see him move up. I think, Rafael Dos Anjos just coming off a loss. I know he's ranked way higher than Ferguson, but I wouldn't mind seeing a fight like that. I think Ferguson's ready, for the next level. I'm not saying he's even top 10, but Dos Anjos is coming off of a loss, and I think that would be obviously a really big test, but I wouldn't mind seeing a fight like that for Ferguson. And Kawano, I wasn't a big fan of his win over Quinn Mulhern last time out, and I know this guy has a lot of hype from Japan and the other organizations, with his karate style, but I don't see really any future for him being a contender or anything close to that in the UFC. Next up, a lightweight last fight on the Fox Sports 1 preliminary card. Michael Maverick Chiesa defeated Francisco Masaranduba Trinaldo by decision. Trinaldo caught him with a body shot early in the first round. I think he got him with 2 body shots, but Chiesa was able to take him down, and that was the story of the fight. Real dominant on top, real dominant in the mount position, worked some ground and pound, and just had his back, dominated him from top position for the whole fight. Trinaldo did lock up an armbar at one point, got a little scary, and I think that was kind of unexpected and a little concerning that Chiesa was so dominant. I think that was in the third round that Trinaldo had an opportunity to finish the fight, but great performance for Chiesa, and Trinaldo. He's had his share of wins in the UFC. He's looked good in some fights, but I think he's just kind of too old and doesn't really have the cardio to compete with some of these other guys in the UFC. But great fight for Chiesa, and if you haven't had a chance, I'd highly recommend watching Chiesa's run through the Tough House. Chiesa's run in the Tough House was one of the best ever, at least that I've seen since season 10. The guy's got a lot of heart, and I think he's in that special class of guys with Edgar and Matt Brown that can just take big damage and they're coming back. But his grappling was really dominant in this fight, and I'm kind of high on him. I think he can be a top 15 guy at lightweight. But it'll be interesting to see who he's matched up with next. Onto the main card. Lightweight, James Krauss TKO Jamie Varner in the first round. Really disappointing outcome. Jamie Varner looked like he hurt his ankle. I'm not sure if it was directly caused by the low kicks of Krauss or if it happened inadvertently, but a really unfortunate outcome. You have to admire Jamie Varner's toughness, his willingness to go on. That was pretty scary to watch. A couple of times Jamie Varner, his foot just crumpled under him and couldn't even stand. on his own feet. I think the ref should have stopped that fight, but James Krauss, he was really mixing it up on the feet with the leg kicks and the rangy striking. I'm still waiting to just see this guy fight a full fight or finish somebody cleanly like he did to Sam Stout. This fight and the last fight, his last fight against Bobby Green, both really kind of disappointing stoppages. And Jamie Varner, I hope he can come back healthy and put on some more exciting performances, but I don't really know where he goes from here. I don't really know where he fits in the division anymore, but I think it was really kind of incredible. He was still able to take Krauss down after he fell the first time, and he was still swinging for the fences, but Krauss gets the win and moves on. Not sure who he should fight next, but I think he's a guy to pay attention to. Next up at bantamweight, Takeya Mitsugaki decision to Francisco Rivera. I thought this was a really great performance for Mitsugaki, the best of his career actually. Both of these guys have been on a hot streak in the bantamweight division. I actually thought Rivera was going to be the one to hurt Mitsugaki first, and it would be up to Mitsugaki to weather the storm. That's how Rivera's been winning his last couple of fights, but it was Mitsugaki who knocked down Rivera on the feet first, and Rivera had to recover. But this fight was pretty much Mitsugaki dominating on the ground. Rivera just seemed exhausted, looked like he had checked out. Real dominant win for Mitsugaki. Rivera did have a few leg trip takedowns that I thought were impressive. Looks like he's slowly adding to his game. But I think this is a good loss for him. I think he'll have to realize he needs to add more to his game, and definitely has to work on his guard and getting up from bottom when he's on his back. But a real good win for Mitsugaki, and I think he should be right there for a title shot, especially now that Dillashaw is the champion. Assunção will probably get it first since he has the win over Dillashaw, but Mitsugaki's right there. I think he's on a big win streak. He's on a 5-fight win streak, and that should be 7 fights. I thought he got robbed in that Chris Carriasso fight, but 5-fight win streak. And he fought a really dangerous guy here. I think more dangerous than some other opponents, Nam Fan, Caraway, Eric Perez, that he's been fighting. So I think this was the best win of his career. Next up at welterweight, ruthless Robbie Lawler TKO'd Jake the Juggernaut Ellenberger in the 3rd round. Great performance from Lawler. Pressed the action from the opening bell. Threw a lot of high kicks. I was really all over Ellenberger. And I said in my predictions, I don't think Ellenberger has been the same guy since his TKO loss to Martin Kampmann. And, I said that Ellenberger, if he fights how he used to fight when he was on that big win streak, I think he can, he's dangerous for anybody. But I said I don't think he's one to fight that way. And Joe Rogan said it too, that Ellenberger, when guys are pressing the action on him, he kind of retreats into his defensive shell, and definitely did that here. Just wasn't willing to come forward until the 3rd round when he took it to Lawler at the beginning of that 3rd round. Landed a few big punches. That was his only moment of success, but Lawler was able to recover, regain composure, and eventually TKO Ellenberger. And Lawler landed a real good knee at one point when Ellenberger was on his knees trying to get back to his feet. Lawler landed a knee to the solar plexus that sent Ellenberger face down back to the mat. I thought that was a pretty cool move there, but great win for Lawler. I think his rejuvenation has been incredible, and I'd like to see him fight another top contender. I'd love to see him match up with him and Matt Brown, but he's right there and should be back in a title fight soon. I think the winner of Tyron Woodley and Rory McDonald next month, that the winner of that should probably get the next title shot. But Lawler's right there, and he's looking better than ever. Real dangerous. I think mentally he's got it all together, and great win. Ellenberger hasn't been finished since his fight with Campman, but in that fight with Campman, he came forward very aggressively and left a big opening for Campman to capitalize on. Here, Lawler chased him, went after him the whole fight. Real impressive performance by Lawler. Next up, a light heavyweight co-main event. Daniel Cormier submitted Dan Henderson in the third round. Cormier took Henderson down first round, and I was slightly impressed with Henderson's defensive grappling. He was able to get a crucifix position from on bottom or in that first round, and landed a few elbows on Cormier from that position, but Cormier just proceeded to really dominate Henderson grappling. He had nothing for him, and then over the next couple rounds had some real big slams. Looked like those slams could have broke Henderson's spine, but I really thought after that first round Henderson should have just went for broke, just thrown that right hand like crazy, and he never threw it, didn't get a chance to get anything going on the feet, and I really hated seeing this. Henderson is one of my favorite fighters. He's beloved by everyone, and it's time for him to retire. I said that this fight wasn't going to be competitive at all, and definitely wasn't. I thought Cormier was going to stand with him. He didn't. He was obviously very dominant with the grappling, eventually getting the choke in the third round. But Henderson is just too small to fight at light heavyweight. He's talking about a move to go down to middleweight, but I think that's ridiculous. I think he needs to retire. I mean, who's he going to fight at middleweight? I think any of those top guys at middleweight would beat him. And, he's had an incredible career. He's just too old at this point. His chin is going. He's already been, put out for the first time in his career, and in his last fight, or 2 fights ago with Belfort. Really sad to see Henderson being dominated this way to a point where he can't even compete. He just can't move like he used to. He had no chance of fending off Cormier's takedowns here, and once he was on bottom, he never got up once. And Cormier gets the win. Everyone wants to see him fight Jones, but I have to say, if you want to see him fight Jones, it's because of everything he's done at heavyweight. I do want to see him fight Jones, but my point is that at light heavyweight, I don't really think, this really proves much. I mean, Henderson is obviously still a dangerous guy, and he's still ranked in the top 10, but, wins over Patrick Cummins and Dan Henderson at this point. To me, that doesn't really prove much for him as a light heavyweight, but it'll be interesting to see him fight Jones. I don't think he can. His wrestling's not gonna be as effective though as it was here against Henderson, against Jones, but he should get that fight. I'm just saying, I think we should still be a little skeptical of how dominant Cormier can be against the elite of the light heavyweight division. I'm not sure that all of his skills that he showed at heavyweight are still going to be effective against the best guys in the division at light heavyweight. You know, I was really interested in that Rashad fight to see how Cormier would do there. Fight fell apart, but yeah, he'll get his title shot against Jones, and we'll see. And it's a fight that needs to happen, but I don't know if I like his chances as much as everyone else does in that fight. And then the main event, TJ Dillashaw TKOing Renan Barao in the 5th round. Just an incredible performance, a really beautiful moment in the sport. I gave this guy no chance. I was very high on him, though. I said in my predictions video I was high on this guy since watching his fight to get into the house on Tough 15. And he had that knockout loss to Dodson, but since then has been very dominant, has a great skill set with his wrestling and submissions, and his striking has been getting better and better, but he never even fought a top 10. He never beat a top 10 bantamweight. He had a real close fight with the Sunset, but I do think he lost that fight, and I wasn't giving him any chance here. But just from the first round, he used that crazy footwork, really strange hand movement, and I think he just threw Barao off his game. Barao didn't know what to do, and he was able to close distance real well, landed what he needed to inside, and got back out of range before Barao could counter him effectively, and then landed that huge overhand right in the first round, dropped Barao, and I think he got a little too excited. He tried to sink in the rear naked choke without throwing either of the hooks in, which was kind of strange, I thought, but I think that was just his adrenaline going there. But remained extremely dominant throughout the rest of the fight with that same crazy footwork. Was just all over Barao, tagging him with punches. I think it's pretty ridiculous that one of the judges gave Barao the 2nd round, but super impressive performance by Dillashaw in that 5th round. It looked like Barao was looking for the ref to stop the action for an eye poke, and he didn't, and Dillashaw jumped on that, was all over him. Really impressive and really admirable that he still went for the finish that deep into the fight, and incredible performance. A guy who didn't win tough, made it to the finals though, and he's the UFC champion right now. Great performance by Dillashaw, the performance of a lifetime. I loved seeing it, and I loved that I was wrong with my prediction. Great performance by Dillashaw. I will say Barao did not look I don't think he looked himself at all. He usually is a lot more dynamic with his movement. Just seemed flat-footed here. But I'm not discrediting Dillashaw's performance one bit. It was super impressive, and he legitimately won that fight, dominated Barao for 5 straight rounds and put him away in that last round. Really giving new life to that division, and I think if Barao gets an immediate rematch, I think that would just be bullshit. Barao is, he was considered one of the pound-for-pound best fighters. He was really impressive, really dominant as a champion, but he got beat, got dominated. This was not a controversial decision loss. He got dominated badly and put away in that fight. I don't want to see him fight right away for the title again. Let some of these other guys, the division is, red hot right now. You have a Sun Tzu who has a win over Dillashaw. You have Mitsugaki, Johnny Eduardo, who's just coming off of a big win. all those guys, and I think Barao should have to beat at least one person before he gets another shot. It's definitely a rematch that needs to happen if Dillashaw can hang on to the belt, but I think it would be really, really bad for the sport, for the sporting side of things, if we saw Barao getting an immediate rematch. Getting TKO'd like that, getting dominated, I don't think that gives you the right to an immediate rematch. Great performance by Dillashaw. So that's my recap for UFC 173. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Please like the video, comment with your thoughts, and definitely subscribe. I will be doing my predictions for UFC Fight Night Berlin, Munoz versus Musasi, as well as the Tough Brazil 3 finale. Both cards taking place next Saturday on the same day. I will be watching both of those cards. So I'll have my prediction videos up for both of those separately, and I will be doing recap videos for both of those as well. But thank you guys for watching. Take care, and I will see you next time. Bye.